Well, that's crazy.
You know,
Like they let us smoke. I smoked. All the kids there smoked, and they didn't care because smoking doesn't cause cancer.
But doing it.
You know, this almost sounds like it has some aspects of it that are pretty much the same as that cult in Texas they just broke up. I mean, you have underage marriaging, you have forced labor and isolation and all that. So how can the government go in there and bust those guys up, but not do anything about the Scientology church?
You know, I would like an answer to that question myself. When I left at the age of 19, I wrote to the California State Labor Department, and I detailed out the labor violations I had suffered and that I knew others were suffering. You know, from the age of 14, I was working 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week. Sometimes we were kept up many nights in a row and not even allowed to go to sleep. And I got a letter back saying that Scientology is a religion, and they don't deal with religions, and to hire a civil attorney. And I was like, I didn't want to file a civil suit, and I just wanted the government to investigate. And I actually called up the Labor Department again recently, and I asked them the same question. And at first, they didn't realize I was speaking about a religion. I said I had these, child labor violation complaints, and they said, they'd start a file, they'd assign a case number, they'd send someone up to look at it. And then I said it was the Church of Scientology, and they said, we don't deal with religion.
Oh, man.
And I think partly, there are a lot of similarities with Scientology and that polygamous sect, and there are some differences. It's two different things. I wouldn't say that there were plenty of young people who got married off early, but it wasn't, that polygamous sect in Texas is like, to me, it seems like a bunch of dirty old men marrying.
Right, and it looks like, too.
It wasn't to that degree, but with Scientology, it's the very secretive nature of everything. Never allowed to, there was molestations that occurred, and I wouldn't say it occurred more than it would necessarily occur somewhere else, but when it did, it was a crime in Scientology to report that to the authorities. And children who were molested were made to write down the things that they had done to cause themselves to be molested.
Oh, my God.
They believe that if anything bad happens to you, it's because you've done something
you've caused it.
Happened to you. So these poor children, are being basically told it's their fault. The exact opposite of what anyone would tell them in the real world.
All of this protected under the right to freedom of religion. And
that's the thing.
This is a religion where, for God's sakes, the thought is that it's aliens that have been... Oh, my
Lord.
Lord.
Not even that. People can believe whatever they want to believe. If they want to believe in aliens, they can believe in aliens. That's fine. That's not... The issue is the secrecy. People don't know what they're supposed to be believing in until they've, wasted half their life and half their money. The child abuse, the not being allowed to speak out, the disconnection policies. If you do speak out, you're excommunicated. Those kind of things. And Scientology was given tax-exempt status in 1993, and it seems that they consider and that gives them exemption to basically do anything because they're now a religion. And I don't even know that it said that they're a religion. It just gave them tax-exempt status.
What about drug? Are they? Because when Tom Cruise was talking, he was talking about how he'd seen the light. And he'd seen, and he understands so clearly. It almost sounds like they slipped him some hallucinogenics, and he had a really good trip.
Sure. Well, I think, when you do this auditing stuff and you get these repetitive questions over hours and hours and hours, it is almost kind of, it's brainwashing, but it can have that kind of effect on you where, it's just total suggestibility. I've seen it happen. It happened to myself. When I was little, I had an auditing session, and then this was in England. I remember I got out of it. I was 7 years old. I went running off down a hill, and I tripped and fell. So my mom came running over to me, and she said, "You've just gone exterior," meaning that I left my body as a result of the auditing session. And I believed her. She was my mom. I was 7 years old.
Right.
So after that, every time I would think to myself, I'm having this Scientology auditing. It doesn't seem to be doing anything for me. I don't really get it. I would think back to that. Well, it made me go exterior. I was able to leave my body, so obviously it worked. And it just kind of has that kind of effect where you kind of convince yourself that it's doing something that it's not actually doing. It's like a placebo effect.
Imagine if you grew up thinking the color white was black and the color black was white. You would know no difference, and that's what it would be. That would be your reality.
I can say there is always a little voice in the very, very, very back of your head saying something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Because for us who've left, there must have been because we left.
Right.
But there's plenty of people still in there, and there's a lot of people who experience some of things and they won't speak out just simply because they have family or friends still in it who will disconnect from them. It was difficult for me when I first spoke out because I knew what would happen.
But everyone around you, everyone
I lost half my family.
Everybody you're close to, everybody will basically look at you like you're crazy and you're wrong. And
all my friends, I had all these childhood friends, gone.
Yeah.
You know, it just wiped out that whole portion of my life. And then the worst thing is for my daughter, who's 9 years old now. She's never had a father. His parents were also Scientologists and disconnected from us, so they won't have anything to do with her because she's connected to me and because I spoke out about these things.
Wow. Not cool. Thank God she's not in that mess.
Well, exactly.
One last question. In New York City, they have right around Times Square that place that is Church of Scientology. How big is that?
You know, I don't know statistically exactly how big that is. I know in New York is where they have their Eastern United States management branch. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is where they're handing out brochures and come in for the personality test. I think it's quite big, all things considered. But like I said, when I worked there, the last year I was there from 97 to 98, I worked in the data bureau doing all the statistics for everything around the world, and they were making less and less money.
Okay. I like to hear that.
Aren't 50 million members.
Right.
They claim.
All right, amazing. Then go to Scientologykids.com.
Great.
Sounds like you've got quite a story to get out there. That's just unbelievable. And I appreciate you coming on there, Astra. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, good luck out there.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy nuts?
That is the best interview I've ever had.
That's so.
I learned so much in that 25 minutes. I didn't want to stop.
It's not just I'm crazy.
WXUR, Herkimer, Rome. Sorry, I went over time.
It's not that just they're crazy. It's like they're abusive too. They're crazy abusive.
God, that's unbelievable.
I thought.